Dr. Haley, good morning. Just getting the screen set up so that I can see what I'm doing. Okay, Dr. Haley, good morning. All the way at the bottom of the Amud base. Diyoy kedei lichtov. And I believe the Mishnah says kedei lichtov two oisius. Let me just get the Mishnah ready here, because we're going to have to go back and forth to the Mishnah today, because the Gemara is going to be accessing a lot of different parts of the Mishnah. So here we are in the Mishnah. Let's see if it says Diyoy kedei lichtov beis oisius. So let me put myself in a place marker here, and then we'll get started. So Zok Tehei Lega Gemara, Diyoy kedei lichtov. Tana, we learned in a brisa. Shtei oisios p'diyoy. What if he carried out the amount of ink that you could write two oisios with in ink? And Rashi says it was dried ink. So he carried out dried ink. How much dried ink was there? It was enough that you could write two oisios with. It's interesting to note that it still has a value, even though it was dry. I guess they could liquefy it again and use it, because if it can't be used anymore, I don't know what value it would have. So shtei oisios with drying, shtei oisios bekulmus, or if they were in the quill, if there was ink in the quill itself, then the ink that could carry two oisios in the quill, and the Mefarshim say two oisios in the quill would mean you need a little bit of extra ink, because some ink always remains in the quill. Because of that, in order to have enough ink to write two oisios, there has to be a little bit more than two oisios.
Isn't he high for carrying the quill?
That's a beautiful kasha. I'm so happy you asked that kasha, because that's a very important point that we have to address.
Well, what was the kasha?
The kasha is, forget about the ink, you're carrying a quill.
Oh, okay, good. I have another kasha, Yosy Simon. The ink that you're going to put from the container, or liquefy it from the container and put it into the quill, is also going to, some of it is going to stay in the quill, and some of it is also going to stay in the container.
Right. So
you also need more.
The machlokes was showing them when you were talking about ink in a container or in anything, do you have to have a little bit of extra ink so there's enough ink to actually write two oisios with the ink that's there, or no, you only need ink for two oisios. That makes it the davar choshev, and it doesn't matter if some of it would remain in the quill. The fact is,
but for two oisios, you need to write it with a quill, so you're going to need to leave some of it in the quill. So you're going to also need extra.
No, that's true.
No,
that's true. That's true. But the machlokes were showing him. The machlokes are showing him is what is considered a choshev amount. The facts are, no matter what it's in, some of it will remain in that receptacle when you write it. That's not a matter of dispute. The machlokes are showing him is whether or not the two oisios that we're talking about, whether or not the amount of ink that we consider significant, is it the amount of ink that you could write two oisios with, or is it the amount of ink that you would need to actually write the two oisios, which is actually a little bit more than that. So is it 4 ounces of ink that's choshev, that if you carry it, you'd be over the Isser Hitzah, or is it 5 ounces of ink? Whether or not you're writing this oisios is not relevant. Here we're talking about the Malach of Hitzah, not the Malach of Ksiva. So the question really is how much ink is enough ink.
What's the difference if it was wet or dry?
What the Bride is telling us is, in fact, that there is no difference.
Oh, so why do you stress that it was dry?
Because Rashi says, I guess it means it's on a paper, and it's b'chai gavna that the paper doesn't have value.
I was going to add that it's important that it's dry, so that people, because it's going to eventually dry. 2 oisios is going to dry within a minute anyway. So the Gemara is going to say that no matter what, the Gemara is saying that even though it's going to dry in a minute anyway, don't think that now it doesn't have a chashivas. The
Rashi says more. Even if it's dry already, it's still considered ink. It's still considered ink. That would be a davar choshev. So Reb Shaya asked a very important kasha: why aren't you usher out to quill? The reason why it's not usher out to quill. Rashi asked the kasha in a moment. So let me learn the next line of the Gemara, and then we'll do Rashi. A very important Rashi. Boy Rav has a shaila. What it was if ois achas b'diyoy, ois achas b'kulmus. One ois was written on a piece of paper, and you had enough ink for one ice on a piece of paper, and you had enough ink for one ice in a quill, and you carried them out separately. So Rashi explains what the shaila is. Mi mitzarfi, do you say they're mitzarf? Oiloi, or do you say they're not mitzarf? They're two separate things that you're doing. Frekt Rashi sharp shais kasha. The Amrit typically mishum kolmus. Even if there's not enough ink, and even if the ink is not mitzarf with the ink in the other receptacle, the fact is you were moitzi a kolmus mishus l'shus. Zokt Rashi a moirdik a chiddush. Loi mechayev ala mishum shu tafel lapachas mikashir. Since the only reason why you're carrying this quill is not because you want the quill itself. It's only because you're looking to transport the ink. The quill itself is bottled to the ink, and therefore, if there's enough ink to create an Isser Eitzah, there will be. And if there's not enough ink to create an Isser Eitzah, even the quill itself has no significance. If you carry oichlin out less than the right shear in a keli, potter, you're going to be potter, af ala kli. So you might ask, I'm transporting food, mishus l'shus, but it's less than the groigris of oichlin. Why would I be potter? And there may not be oichlin here, but there's a kli here. The teretz is with pesha kli tfeiloi. So that's a very big chiddush, that since I'm only carrying the keli, agav the payers, the kli doesn't have its chashivas. No, it reminds
Yosy,
me.
we had this a few blocks ago with the smell, right? With the perfume, if we stayed in the bottle or something, on the base.
I remember having this a while ago. I actually do. I was looking for the Gemara where we had it, but I wasn't able to find it. So this reminds me a little bit of what Rabbi Victor said. We were discussing if you have to toivel pickle jars, and the Victor sent out after Shir, he sent out a psak from Moshe, that when the goyim are selling you their pickles at the pickle jar, they're not selling you a pickle jar. They're selling you pickles, and the jar is only there as a way for them to deliver the pickles to you. And therefore, Moshe Paskins, and now Victor, please correct me if I'm wrong, that you don't have to toivel a pickle jar, because when you decide that you're going to save that pickle jar and use it for something, you're the mak of the patish. The yid is the one who completed the keli and made it into a keli, and therefore, since the yid finished the keli, there is no chiyuv tefillah on it, because the guy didn't tell me pickle jars. He told me a pickle. The pickle jar is just a hechatimtza to get the pickles to me. So it's really bottled to the pickles. So when I have a keli that's serving food that's contained within the keli, the main thing that I'm moving here is the food, and the keli is bottled to it. So that's a pretty big chiddush. As a matter of fact, they ask Akasha if the iser of the Haitzah is a sheer groigus, we have a xeris kosov that for food is the sheer groigus. They ask the kasha because one of the makoris to the iser Haitzah, Taisus brings down at the beginning of the Masechta, I believe on the very first daf, is in the Parshas Hamon of Al Yetze Ishvim Koimai, and that's in the Parsha of Mon where it's talking about the Mon on Shabbos. Let me just see if I could find it here. And because of that, they ask there, the shear of Mon was in the Asir Sa'efa, it was a lot more than just the Groigris. So if this is the Makar, if the Parsha of Mon is the Makar of the Isser Haitzah, so where was it? Al Yeta Ishma Mekoyim B'Yom HaShvi. If this is the Makar of Isser Haitzah, well, there it was an Omer. So there's different ways to answer this kasha. Some learn we're only taking the general rule of Eitzah from there, but the details we're not getting from there. But there's one Mandamer who says that the Isser Eitzah we're not learning from the food. We're learning Isser Eitzah from the basket that people went out with to collect their mon. Now, after they collected their mon, it was bottled to the mon. But on the way out, Al Yetesh from coming, when they were going out to collect their mon, they were traveling with an empty keli. An empty keli is independent of any food in it, and therefore there would be Isra Tzah on it, even if there wasn't a sheer food in it. So the keli by itself, you'll about to be over the Isra Tzah. But when the keli is just being used to transport food or other things such as ink, then we don't look at the keli at all. Okay, Zot Tehele Gemara weiter. boy Rabba, what would be if Oisachas b'Diyoy, Oisachas b'Kolmis, and Oisachas b'Kalmorin, which would be in the inkwell now? Zoktamor Teku. So Tosfos just clarifies a little bit, and he says, "Alpha pisha shnei kulmosim mitzarfi kahagavna." Even though if you had two kulmosim, they would be mitzarf, but maybe mitzarfi kahagavna shem lo yitzarfi. Maybe it's in two different. If it's in two different things, maybe it would be mitzarf because we look at it as different actions. Zok tehele the Gemara Vayter. Amar Rabba, hoitzi shtei oisiyos. Someone was moitzi two oisiyos. V'chosvan kishahu mahalach. So what Rashi tells us is that when he instead of he made a proper akira, and I guess it was in a quill, and instead of making the hanacha while he was walking in the Rishus Harabim, he was writing the oisius down on a piece of paper. So Rashi tells us Shloi Omid Lofish to have hanacha skufoi hanachas chayfetz. He never made hanacha. He just wrote. So Rashi afilochi chayiv the ikar hanachas deyoy alaksafu. By definition, putting ink on a piece of paper, that's a hanacha in and of itself, and therefore, even though he was moving as he wrote it, so you might say it's not hanacha. Zok Rava kisivason zuhi hanachason. Writing it, putting the ink on paper is considered a hanacha.
This is the initial texting and driving.
Very good. And it was illegal then, and it's illegal now. What if he took one ois out? He carried the amount of ink that could write one ois, and then he wrote down the ois on the piece of paper. And then he took out another bit of ink that was enough to write one ois, because when he wrote it, potter. It's going to be potter. My time, why is it potter? When he was making the haitzah on the second little bit of ink, there's already some ink missing from the first set of ink. And Rashi says, why is it missing? Because since he wrote the ois after he was moitzi it dries up. And when it dries up, nechser shir, the ink gets diminished. I guess drying by definition is evaporation. So it actually contracts and there's going to be less ink there. So there's less ink there than the ink that was originally required to write the two oisiyos. And therefore, when he finishes the tzah by bringing out the second bit of ink, and we want to combine the two inks so that he'd have a shear, the minimum shear for tzah, and can shear beis oisiyos. At that point, you no longer have the shear of two oisiyos. V'amarava, hoitzi chatzi groigers. What about food? He took out a half a groigers of food, chatzi groigers achas, v'nicha, and he put it down in Rishus Harabim. And then v'chozav hoitzi chatzi groigers achas, and then he went back inside, and he brought out another half a groigers worth of food, v'nicha, and he also put it down. So the halacha is, Rishoyne nasa kami shekolta kelev oshenisrufa. We look at the first groigers as if it's no longer there when he brings the second groigers out, even though it is there, potter and it will be potter. Frankly, this makes no sense at all. V'amai hamandcha. It's sitting right there. Why in the world would you say it's not mitzaref? Just because I brought out a half a groigers at a time. So Gemara halchika amar. This is what Rava means to tell us. If before he had a chance to bring out the second half of the groigers, someone went and took the other one away, then Nasas Rishona Kamisha Kolta Kelev, Oishanisfar Potter. We look at it like there was never a hanacha. Rather, since it never landed in Rishus Harabim, we look at it like it was never landed in Rishus Harabim, and therefore he never brought out a full Isser. What if he took out a half a groigers, the same case, and he put it down, and then but the second groigers he didn't put down. So he has a half a groigers sitting on a picnic table in Rishus Harabim that he brought out, and then the second half of groigers he walks with it and he runs. He doesn't put it down. He just walks past the first Gregris and he passes it over the first Gregris. Chayiv, that's going to be chayiv. For about my haloinach, he never put down the second half of Gregris in Rosh Hashanah, so he never completed the malacha. So tomorrow, the reason why Rava says he's chayiv is kagoyin she'avira toich shloisha. He had it within 3 tefachim of the floor, and if something's within 3 tefachim of the floor, it's considered like it's munach, and therefore he's chayiv for the malacha.
Is it 3 tefachim of the floor or 3 tefachim of the other other chatzi gregers?
Of the other chatzi gregers. I'm happy that you.
But what if it was 3 tefachim on less than 3 tefachim from the floor? But regardless of.
Then for sure it's a good anacha. The chiddush is that even though it's not 3 tefachim on the floor, it's only 3 tefachim from the other gregers. And I want to read Tosus because that's exactly what you mentioned is exactly a Tosus. Mefarsher first to huadin afilu shaloika der chalel. It doesn't have to be that it was hovering right over the first gregris. Im hevira toch shloisha lakarka. If it was within 3 tefachim of the ground, mitzdarif, it would be mitzdarif to create a full gregris that someone made it saw. Tamrina besamach behela mechat chayiv afilu shtei resus. That's weiter. But then Tosfos says over here, but the chiddush here is v'naka der chalel afilu gavoyim in a karka gimel tvachim, even though he's actually higher than 3 tvachim above the karka. So it's not like it's munach of the karka. Chayiv kiven davet toich gimel lechatzi gregris hamanachas of the karka. Since it's within 3 tvachim of the other half of gregris, it makes it like it's munach, even though it's not within 3 tvachim of the karka. I think that's exactly what the Shai was saying.
Okay, Yossi, what if it's below 3 tvachim? So it's over to the karka, but how close, like how far away can he be from the other gregors?
It could be very far away. We're going to learn at the bottom of the Amid when you have a problem, when it's not considered in the same place, where it would not be a malacha. But it's distance. It's not distance that the.
It's not social distance.
It's not. Okay. It's if there's a different rishus in between. So the Gemara is going to give examples where.
Okay, but if you're in the same rishus, how close does he have to be?
It doesn't have to be close at all. It could be very far away.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be very far away. So let's see what the Gemara says weiter. Frek the Gemara, the Omer Rabba Tosh Shloisha L'Rabbanon Tzarech Hanocha Al Gabe Mashu. We learned that it has to be put down on something, and this was never put down on anything. So it's more like kasha. Kam bezorik, kam b'maver. If you're throwing something and it's in the air, that's where Rabba said you need hanacha al gabe mashu. But when you're actually carrying it, then you don't need the hanacha al gabe mashu. Like Rashi says, if you're carrying it like tzarech hanacha, the mancha b'yadoi, the yadoi smucha l'karka, because it's in your hand and your hand is near the karka. That does not need a hanacha. It only needs a hanacha, a real hanacha, if it's suspended in the air, it's flying through. But since here he's carrying it, it will be the chi of deraisa. Taner Rabbanan, hoitzi chatzi gorges. He took out one chatzi gorges, and then the hazav hoitzi chatzi gorges, the hela mechod. If during this entire story, from beginning to end, he didn't realize it was Shabbos, or he didn't realize he was doing a malacha, or he didn't realize the malacha was aser. I'm sorry. He didn't realize it was Shabbos, or he didn't realize that the malacha was aser. If he didn't realize that he was doing a malacha, that can be misasik. So either he didn't realize it was Shabbos, or he didn't realize that this malacha was aser. Chayiv, he'll be chayiv v'chavos. But b'shtei alomis, if after he took out the first half of Groigus, he remembered that it was Shabbos, and then he forgot again, then it will be potter. Rabbi Yosy Simon, the hela mechad, even if he did both these transportation of the half of Groigus, even if he did it and he was oblivious to the fact that it was Shabbos from the beginning till the end, there's still more limitations. Rishus echad, if they were both brought into the same rishus, chayiv, l'shtei rishuyos, if they were brought into two separate rishuyos, Zok Rashi, but Ushten Rishus Rabbim. He went from Rishus Yachid to two different Rishus Rabbims. There's something separating the two Rishus Rabbims. So he took a half a Kazai, half a Groigris out from his Rishus Yachid to one Rishus Rabbim, and a half a Groigris he took out to a different Rosh Hashanah, then it will be potter. Omer Rabbah, and Rabbah explained Rabbi Yoshi's words. What is a hefsek between Rosh Hashanah A and Rosh Hashanah B? That's only if there's a chiyav chatas b'neim al karma l'sloy. So let's see the picture, because the picture actually does a very good job. He took a half his eyes from this bias, which was Rosh Hashanah, into this Rosh Hashanah. Then he took a half his eyes. Half a Gregis. Thank you so much. Then he took a half a Gregis from this Rosh Hashanah, from this bias to this Rosh Hashanah. But the problem is these two Rosh Hashanahs, this one and this one, are separated. What are they separated by? If they're separated by a chiyav chatos, meaning by a Rosh Hashanah, and what we mean by chiyav chatos is that if this separation, whatever is the separation between the two Rosh Hashanahs, if there would be a chiyav chatos, if you carried from there to the Rosh Hashanah, so for instance, if this space in the middle was a Rosh Hashanah, and if you would have carried from that Rosh Hashanah to this Rosh Hashanah, or from this Rosh Hashanah to this Rosh Hashanah, if that would generate a chiyav chatos, then this is considered a mafsik. But what if this was a karmelis? We know a karmelis is only usher to carry to Rosh Hashanah midirabana. That's not considered a hefsek. So that's what Rava is explaining Rabbi Yosef. That Rabbi Yosef said, if the two Rosh Hashanah are separated, it's not considered one malacha when you brought from this house to this Rosh Hashanah and from this house to this Rosh Hashanah. That's only if they're separated by a real separation, such as a Rosh Hashanah. But if this area in between the two Rosh Hashanahs are merely a karmelis, then you would still bring a chatos, even though you did half the malacha on this side of the Rosh Hashanah and this half of malacha on the other side. They combine because we look at all of this Rosh Hashanah as one, because this is not considered a proper hefsek since it's only a karmelis.
Yeah, see, can you just clarify in reality about, earlier we were talking about how you saw whether the Isser of Shabbos is taken out of the Rosh Hashanah or the Isser is when you get into the Rosh Hashanah.
There's an Isser to carry either from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah or from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. The case that we're discussing is when you started off in the Rosh Hashanah in your house, and then you ended up and you carried something from your house into the Rosh Hashanah. But the problem is you did it piecemeal. You did a half a gregus from here to here, and a half a gregus from here to here. The question is, does that combine to be one malacha? No, you're muted. Let me unmute you. I'm not able to unmute you for some reason. I didn't hear what you said.
No, you're taking it out of a Rosh Hashanah. Why is it enough to differentiate that it's two different Rosh Hashanahs to separate the two gregors?
It's not two gregors, two half a gregors. If you take a half a gregors from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, there's no chiyav chatos. It's only half a gregors. So I need to combine these two actions. I could only combine these two actions if the Rosh Hashanah, if the Rosh Hashanah that they land in are a common Rosh Hashanah.
Right, but does the Rosh Hashanah that has to go out from actually have to be common as well, or that doesn't apply to?
As you see in the case, this house is on this side of the Rosh Hashanah, and this house is on the other side of the Rosh Hashanah. So we're only worried about where they land.
So why are you more worried about where they land? That's just background I'm asking. I'm not asking.
I'm not sure if we're more worried about where they land. I wonder if it would be the same shaila with where they come from. I don't know that we're more worried about where they land. If I'm not mistaken, Tosfos changes it from Bir Shosechad to Mer Shosechad, right? Tosfos actually says that you look at it the opposite way. You're focusing more on where you started the malacha, not on where you end the malacha. So, and Tosfos asked that, brings it for a different reason, but it's possible that both are relevant. That they have to be Rosh Hashanah. Tosfos learns that the Rosh Hashanah would have to be joined. Rashi's learning that we're focusing more on the destination. Now, why don't you need both is a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, because Rashi's focusing.
I guess all the previous. Yeah, I mean, all the previous cases didn't seem to indicate where it was okay to come from the same place. So it could be that there's less of an issue where it's coming from, but rather where it's landing is they didn't seem to differentiate it in the other ones.
Right,
So.
but Tosfos actually specifically argues, because Tosfos says that we have a Gemara that says, "Kosof ois achas b'Tveria, ois achas b'Tzipuri." If you do one half of the malacha in one city and one in the other city, meaning the end of the malacha occurred in two different cities, it would be chayiv. So that's why he learns mishus achas chayiv, mebez mishus potter, the boy akira mimokem echad. So Tosfos learns the akira has to be mimokem echad, and Rashi learns that the hanocha has to be b'mokem echad. I hear your question, and that is, if you need akira, why would you make a distinction? If you need the akira b'mokem echad, why shouldn't you also need hanocha b'mokem echad, and vice versa? And I don't know the answer to that, but what the facts are is that Tosfos learns you need akira b'mokem echad, and Rashi seems to be learning that you need hanocha b'mokem echad, but I don't have the reason as to why. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. So Amar Rabba, when do you say that if it's in two different reshuyos, it's the two half of malachas cannot combine? If the area in between the two reshus harabims was a reshus hayachid. Okay, Shlomi's working hard over there to see if he can find the answer. You see anything there in the blue art scroll? You're also muted. Can you help?
No, yeah, I was just looking at what the box said on this base. What we're talking about is what Rabbi Yossi's memory was, right? Rabbi is trying to. Rabbi is explaining Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi happens to say lish de rishus. That was his case. The box.
Yeah, but Tosfos changes that.
Maybe the box even did.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But I just want to know, regardless of who you learn like, one is putting emphasis on the akira, one is the emphasis on the hanocha. If you need to have the same rishus, so why aren't they both relevant?
Right.
So that I don't have a reason for. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says weiter. Abaya Amar afilu karmelis. Even if there's a karmelis in between them, that will also separate them, even if it's not a chiyuv chatas. Aval pisla, if you just had a piece of wood, across the middle, that would not separate them. Rav Amar afilu pisla, even a small piece of wood going across would separate them. Now the question is, what is the significance of this piece of wood? So Tosfos actually speaks out that this piece of wood can't be high enough, 10 tefachim high, because then it becomes a carmelis. It has to be something that's not a carmelis. So Tosfos, this is a piece of wood that might be 4 amos, might be very big along the street, but it's low enough that it's used by Rishus Harabim. It's got to be a piece of Rishus Harabim. So even though it's considered halachically Rishus Harabim, according to Rava, it's going to separate it. And why will it separate it? Because by Gittin, you find that it separates it. What's the case by Gittin? By Gittin is the case as follows. Reuven wants to give his wife Leah a get, but he doesn't want to hand it to her. He doesn't even want to look at her. So what he wants to do is he wants her to be koined with a kinyan chatzar. The problem is unlike most people, all his properties were in his name, not in her name. So she doesn't have property. So what he did is he lent her his property. So I will lend you this property, and then I will throw the get into that property, and this way you will be mugareshes. The problem is there was a piece of wood in the property, a log lying on the floor in the property, and his mazel is when he threw the get, instead of it landing on the ground, it landed on the piece of wood. So the halacha by Gittin is, since it didn't fall on the floor, it fell on the log, it's not considered like it's in a rishus. And the reason for that is, Rashi tells us, is because chad mokay mushli inchi trei mukamis la mushli inchi. I'm willing to give my wife a lender for the purpose of getting rid of her. I'm willing to lend her one piece of property, but I'm not willing to lend her 2 pieces of property. And the fact that it landed on a piece of wood, even though halachically that piece of wood is in the property, we say that he didn't want to give her the place of that log. So you see there's a distinction, like Abigittin, that it's not the same domain. Once you see that distinction, that would be enough to create a hefsek, according to Rava, between the two Rishus Harabims, and therefore there would not be a chiyuv chatas if one hanacha was in this Rishus Harabim and the other hanacha was in this Rosh Hashanah, but there's a hefsek in between of a piece of wood, a pisla, there would not be a chiyuv chatas.
According to Rava, if you're carrying something mamashastic more than a shear, and you cross shus rabim 4 amos, 2 amos was on one side of the pisla, and 2 amos on the other side of the pisla, you're not chayiv?
I don't know. That's a very, very good shaila. This is negay to a deraisa, and the Rava is saying you're not chayiv a korban because there's a chiluk reshuyos. So I would say with fear that maybe Rava holds you wouldn't be chayiv. There's definitely a place to say that because it's a separate reshus. But I don't know what it means. See, I don't see. The fact is, I did move something 4 amos, and I moved something 4 amos in Rosh Hashanah. The question is, did I move it 4 amos in the same Rosh Hashanah? That's what your shaila is. The shaila of the Gemara is I did 2 half a malachas. Can I combine them? So you're looking at also 2 half a malachas, 2 amos here, 2 amos there, but we're not combining the shear of what we transported. We're combining the 2 shuyas. So I mean, I hear Azai, you hear Azai. I don't know what the halach will be, but the shaila is a very good shaila. Okay, let's see the Hilchah Gemara back here. Now it gets a little bit easier. Choil, kedei likchoil ayin achas. So the Mishnah said, how much choil do you need, which was some type of blush or sand or eyeshadow, enough to make choil on one eye. So the Gemara is going to ask, ayin achas, halakachli. Who's going to put eye? Would you go walk with your wife on the street if she had eyeshadow on one eye and not on the other eye? It looks funny. Amar Avuna, you know who does this? Shekain snuois koichlois. 1 second. I think my computer went dim. It's because my. Okay, sorry about that. Just repeat the words. So Zok the Gemara, no one's going to just put eyeshadow on one eye. The halakachli. Amar Avuna shekain snuois koichlois einachas. It seems Rashi says like the snuois wore hijabs. And the hijab is even worse than what they wear nowadays because it actually even covered one of their eyes. And they only had one of their eyes exposed. David, can I use the word exposed for that? Only one of their eyes were exposed. And therefore, they only had to put makeup on one of their eyes. Meis ben freik the Gemara. Shimon ben Elazar Omer, kechoil, when it comes to kechoil, imler refuah, if you're using it because it's going to be some type of refuah for your eye, then kidei likchoil ayin achas. Then you just need enough choil for one eye because that's where she might have her wound. But in lakashit, but if it's for makeup, it has to be bevesin eye. So how could you, Rav Huna, suggest that there were women that only use it for beauty for one eye, and because of that, if they had choil for one eye for beauty, that would be a critical amount? You see from the Bryson, not like that. So Gemara, Tirgum Hill, Beredab Shmuel, Berechmeni, Hitanihibi Ranyos. In big cities, women were very tzniistic because Rashi says there was a lot of schoik and kalash roish going on in the cities. And he said, but in the little villages, she'ein schoik the kalash roish mochusham. Therefore, they can put on proper makeup. So in the villages, they would put on proper makeup. So in the villages, makeup for one eye is not normal. However, in the big cities where women have to be more careful, their makeup on one eye could have been considered typical. Now, this line in the Gemara is really supposed to be there, but it's supposed to be a little bit further down. So I guess we'll learn it further down where Rashi places it. Zok the Gemara about Devek glue. To put at the edge of the poles that the hunters used. What hunters? The way they trap bird is they used to use glue traps like we use for mice. They would put a very strong glue on little sticks, and they would hang these sticks on trees, on rashes. They hung them on the edge of a corner, and when a bird landed on it, and then the bird tried to fly away, it couldn't get away. Its feet got stuck. And they actually still capture birds this way in Asia. There's a lot of YouTube videos on So it was a type of bird trap. So enough glue to use to capture a bird, that would be enough glue to be over Israel. Zephys v'gofris, tar and sulfur. Kedei lasos, we learned kedei lasos neck of cotton to make a small hole, and that was what we said in a mercury in a vial. It was holding mercury. They closed a hole and they made a pinhole in it so that you can use it as a dropper to allow one drop of mercury to come out at a time. And I think after that we have this in the Mishnah: shaiva wax kedei litmach neck of cotton to close up a hole in a jug. Tana kedei litmach neck of cotton shel yayin is to put on a jug of water. And Rashi's lemute shemen dvash shayayin zov derech neck of cotton yoshim shemen dvash. So we're referring to a very small hole. So you only need very little wax just to fill a small hole, a hole that would allow wine to escape. It would take a much larger hole to allow oil, which is more viscous, or dvash, honey, which is also more viscous, to escape. And the next thing was, the next gemara is charosis. Charosis was a ground down brick. Kedelasis pikor, to make the around the hole with the goldsmith, around the crucible, with the goldsmith formed his gold kalim, they would put a edge of block or brick around it, so that when he put his bellows on it, it would seal it better. Zaktimar, remember the shir, the Rabbi Yehuda Nafish. So let's go back and look at the Mishnah, because it's actually a machlokes of how much has to be, how much the shir of this charosis you need to create the Isser. So let me quickly find the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, charosis kedei lasos pikor shel tzarfes of, enough to make the rim around that crucible. Rabbi Yehuda kedei lasos pitput subin, to make a full tripod out of this block. So the Gemara is going to ask, to make a tripod is a lot more charosis than you would need just to make a rim around the crucible. So frek the Gemara, remember the shear of Rabbi Yehuda Nafish? Do you want to tell me that Rabbi Yehuda's shear is a larger shear? Hakaim alone, we know the shear of the Rabbanan Nafish. We know that the Rabbanan shear was a greater shear, meaning more kuladik, because the more you have to carry, the more kuladik it is, because you don't bring a chatos for it so until you carry that greater amount. That none. Later on in the Mishnah, earlier on in the Mishnah, when the Mishnah is discussing how long a string is considered a chosh of a string, the Tanakama said if it's a string that's long enough to create a handle for a basket, and Rabbi Yehuda says no, even if it's a short piece of string that you would use just to measure the length of your child's foot, so that you would know how big to have the shoemaker make the shoe, that's big enough. So you see, Rabbi Yehuda has a smaller shear than that of their Rabbanan.
Why can't they be machmer in one and cool in the other? Two different measurements.
Beautiful kasha. What does one have to do with the next? They're arguing about what's a measurement of. Just because Rabbi Yehuda has a different opinion on how long a string has to be, why does that automatically tell us what a shita will be lagabe how much charosis you need? So we'll get to that in a second. So to the lawsuit pitput of kirktana. It doesn't mean to actually make the whole tripod. It means Rabbi Yehuda says enough of this this lime sand stuff, this ground brick, to just repair a tripod, and that's far less than the amount needed to create a rim. So I believe Tosfos asks your kasha. No, Tosfos does not ask your kasha. The Art Scroll asks your kasha. He asks, why is it that one is depending on the next? So we'll actually look at it inside. And the apparent difficulty, who does he bring it down from? He brings it down from the Chiddush Ram. He says, what's the basis for the Gemara's assumption that the Yehuda's measurement will be smaller in all cases? Just because he holds a small measurement is the right one in the case of the rope, but by the charosis, the six charosis, who said over there, it's going to be smaller. So he says a shtick of lomdus. So he says the machlokes is as follows. They both agree. I'll just speak it out. They both agree that the common use for it was their abundant use, was the larger amount. So they both agree that by the charosis, the most common use of it was to build a rim around the crucible. And they both agree that when it comes to a string, the most common use was to use it for the basket. The question is, if I could find a legitimate smaller use that's used, just not the most common use, but it's a legitimate use, is that considered enough that I could be machmer? Do I now have to be machmer and say that will also be usher al the Isser Shabbos? And on that, Rabbi Yehuda holds, yes, I have to be machmer, and the Chum holds, no, not to be machmer. So in fact, the machlokes is not on the Metzias. The machlokes is not about what the use of a keli is, because that would not be logical anyway. We can go out and see how people use the kelim. Everybody agreed that the vast majority of people used it for what the larger share is required, but there was a significant amount of people that used it for what the smaller share was. And the question is, you have to be machmer to aser hartzah and to make a chatas for hartzah even in a smaller amount. So once you look at it that it's already a shayla in halacha, not a shayla metzias, it makes sense why the two are connected. Okay, Subin?
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. I would have forgot to mention that. Subin Bran, could they litin al pikur shal tzar feizov? And one shot in Rashi is they would put it in, if they didn't have, if the goldsmiths didn't have coal with them to work their goldsmithing, they would use the subin as fuel, and that would be the heat with which they formed the gold. Okay, let's see the Hale of the Gemara weiter. Tanurabam, hamoitzi sir. If you carry out hair, how much hair do you need? Kedei legabel boyis hatit. You need the amount of hair required to mix tit. What does that mean? And Toshis explains that what it means is we already know that how much water do you need for tit? Revius. And we said that a person wouldn't bother mixing tit in such small batches. Once he's going to mix it, he's going to mix a minimum of tit that you need a revius of water for. So using that same ratio, how much hair would get mixed into that mixture, a mixture that had a revius of water, however much hair that is the amount of hair that we say is the critical amount of hair that will be usher. And they used to mix hair into it because it made the cement good. It was yofel tit. It was good for the tit. Now tit, what about the actual tit? That's lasos pikur shel tzar feizov, enough tit to make the rim around the crucible for the tzar feizov. So Tosfos says there's actually a second girsa that was not koresh tit, and it was hamoitzi sir. How much hair does it have to be? Kedei legabel boyis hatit lasos pikur shel tzar feizov. And what that means is you would, even though you originally mixed the tit without hair, if I have some tit now that I want to use to create a rim around the crucible, I would now mix hair into that tit. So how much hair would I mix into that tit? That amount of hair is the amount of hair that would be usher to carry Mershus Tashus. Soid kidei lasud, Tana, kidei lasud et spektana shevapanis. So this sid when it was put on a skin, it smoothened it out, it softened it. So how much sid do you need? Enough that you would be able to treat a small finger of a girl. Amar Yehuda Amarav, but Nois Yisrael Shegila Perkin Verlagil Lashonim. What about girls who are not yet they have not yet reached the age of 12, the age of puberty, yet they already have hair, and that was something that was not a good thing. And Rashi says more than that, Shekroivas Lihinose, they want to get married and they want to beautify themselves, but they had too much hair. But Oisos Kedei Liapois Ulabin Atzman. They did it, they wanted to make their skin look white and beautiful and get rid of hair. That's why they would spread sid. Sid is somewhat corrosive, actually. So they would put sid on it. So the Benoisanim, if they were poor and they couldn't afford the finest ointments and the expensive waxings, they just typeless and besid. They put sid on, which was a corrosive construction material, and they got rid of their hair. The wealthier girls, typeless and besidless. They used flour, and flour also has that corrosive effect, and we know that because you use soilus in the preparation of hide to help the the hair become easier removed from the hide. Because our Mishnah said that you use soilus, or the brides at the bottom of Amar Aleph. And B'nois Melachim, the luxury girls, Toiflus Oishim b'Shemen Hamor. They use Shemen Hamor, and that's what they use. So they all were trying to reach the same purpose. They use different materials depending on what their status was. Shneimar, where do you see
the
Shemen
video
Hamor
you
was,
showed us?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, the video you showed us of them preparing
Was lime.
The hides, that they were using lime. That's what he
That's
said.
right. But soilus, you see, soilus has similar properties that it creates corrosive. Because the video used lime, and here we're using lime. But soilus also works because we know the Gemara says they use soilus for hides. Shenemar shisha chadashim. I guess there's more than one way to skin a cat. So Zok the Gemara, where do you find that Shemen Hamor is a beauty product? Shenemar shisha chadashim v'Shemen Hamor, which was what they used in the times of Achashverosh. My Shemen Hamor, what is the Shemen Hamor? Amar sitachas. It was sitachas, which was oil that had mixed into it certain spices. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar, Shemen Zayis Shelo Yavi Shlish. It was a sharp oil because it was oil from grapes that didn't grow a third, and the oil that you extracted from such olives, that's what this was. Tanya Yehuda Omer, an piknoin is Shemen Zayis Shelo Yavi Shlish. An piknoin is oil that came from olives that didn't grow a third. And what did you use it for? Why would they smear it? Shemesir es asar, it removes hair, and uma'adan abosher, and it softens the skin. So it has two good beauty properties, two good cosmetic properties. Bibi, Havale Barta, he had girls that had a problem with hair. And I don't know why he got involved, but he did. I guess he wanted to marry them off. And in order to marry them off, he had to make sure that his daughters were beautiful. So Tafla Aver. Instead of smearing their whole body with it in one shot, which would have killed him because it's corrosive, he did it one Aver at a time. And what happened was they became so beautiful. After this treatment, the Shidduch crisis was suddenly over. Shokabal Dalad Meizuze. Not only did he not support the item, he charged the item 400 zuz to get his daughters. They were so beautiful. After they put Sid, after he treated his daughters with the Sid, they became so beautiful that people were jumping for them. Look what Rashi says. They became so beautiful, the kavtzu aleh hamehugonimla. The boys that were good for her were jumping for her. Ad kedekach v'nosnu mammon. He was able to charge an application fee for anybody who wanted to date his daughter. He charged an application fee, and he made 400. I wonder what the treatment cost.
Just like seminaries.
That's right. Exactly. So there was this guy who said, "Wow, your daughters are beautiful. What did you do?" He said, "Oh, I gave him Sid treatment." So this guy said, "Let me try it. I also want to get people to jump for my daughter." Havale Barta, and he was Tafla B'chad Zimna. He didn't just take hydrococaine. He drank a bottle of fish tank cleaner, Umesa, and then she died because they didn't do what Trump did. They just did something crazy to blame it on Trump. Omar. So what did this stupid Democrat say? Koto Rabibi Labarti. Trump killed everybody because he was promoting this drug, and this nut bar only drank fish tank cleaner because of Trump. So you see, it's not a new thing that people distort what you say and then do a stupid thing and get killed and then blame it on you. This guy did it in the times of Rav Bibi as well. Amar Rav Nachman, Rav Bibi, the Shasi Shichra, Bain but the Tavalia. What causes a woman to grow a lot of hair? If she drinks beer. And you see, it's not an old folks tale. They say a woman who drinks from the Avdallah wine grows a beard. So it's not wine, but it's really beer. If you drink beer, you end up getting hair, and it darkens your skin. And that's why, since Rav Bibi served beer to his girls, they like to drink beer. He had to sit them so that they should be able to become beautiful again. But Anan, Anan the loisha shidin shichra, but us, Rav Nachman, us that we don't drink beer, leibayin banta tafla. We wouldn't have to put this treatment on because we don't drink too much beer.
Yeah, but yeah, see, that's a distortion of the words, right? It's Rav Bibi drank the beer. How do you touch the words of Rav Nachman?
No, I think it means his family. His family drank beer, and because of that, I think that's what the ArtScroll says. What is I think the ArtScroll says. I believe so. I was thinking the same thing, and I think the ArtScroll said. Let's have a look.
It says Anon the loy shaskinan shechara.
So let's see what he says over here. His daughter requires drinks beer in his household. Yeah, it's who drinks beer in his house. I assume since they drink beer in the household that the girls drank. I can't imagine that the fact that their baby drank should make his daughters have this problem.
I know,
but I thought that since it's in the household, they partook. Okay, but I remember Rabbi Lowe was once speaking about a woman making Havdalah for herself. I don't remember what halacha it was related to. And Rabbi Lowe said to Farish that don't worry, there are a lot of make Havdalah for themselves. They will not grow beards. That's an old wives' tale, and it's not true. But you have to know that that's only if they make Havdalah on wine. If they make Havdalah on beer, they might end up with a beard. Okay.
He was talking about the after Yom Kippur or something like that. Is it possible?
Yeah, but after Yom Kippur, you could also grow a beard.
And now with Corona, he's telling a lot of people to make Havdalah at home. I'm not. I don't think my mother used to come to me for Havdalah. He told my mother she should not come to. She should make Havdalah at home.
Have you checked your mother? Is she growing a beard?
She looks okay to me. Okay. She doesn't look like she can pass any child yet.
Okay. Come on. So more about your Laomer. Could they lost it kilkel to put sit on the temples to flatten down her hair? My kilkel umayan dipi. Because if we go back to the Mishnah has three different shiurim of how much sid is enough that it would create an issue to carry. So the first shot of the Tanakama was Kedei Lasud Ketana Sheva Banis, and the Gemara told us that means like one little finger. But you just said Kedei Lasud Kilkel to do her temples, which is a little bit less. And the Chemioimer Kedei Lasud and Undapi further down. Well, the Gemara should say what it is, but it means further down in temples to get rid of the hair that would grow where our sideburns grow. So, and that's even the smallest shear. So let's have a look at the Gemara analyzing. My kilkel, umay andipi. What are these two areas that the Mishnah is discussing? Lagabi the amount of sid required. Omarav sida ubas sida. It means the temple and the area below the temple. So right up high up by the temple, it's normal to have some hair growth. So there they're using the sid just to flatten the hair out. It shouldn't be bushy. But lower down where there shouldn't be any hair at all, there you would actually use it to remove the hair completely. So tomorrow, remember the shear of Rabbi Yehuda Nafish. Are you saying that Rabbi Yehuda's shear is greater because the shear for tzida is greater than the shear for bas tzida? Ayakaim below on the shear of Rabbanan Nafish. We learned that the Rabbanan has a greater shear. So tomorrow, Zutam the Rabbanan, the Nafish with Rabbi Nechemia. Rabbi Yehuda's shear is smaller than the Rabbanan shear, the Tanakama shear, who says it's enough to service one limb. So servicing the temples is less than the amount required to service one limb. But Rav Nechemia is even more machmer, and he holds even a lesser amount of sid is significant if it can be used to remove the hair from her lower temple. Meisvei frek the Gemara. Amarav. Nirin divrei Rabbi Yehuda bechibut. I think that Rabbi Yehuda's shear of temple is for sid that's chavut. Rashi touches chavut as it's mixed with a lot of water loosely, and it's like a paste. It's like a paste or an ointment. If it's that consistency, that's when I would agree with Rabbi Yehuda that the amount that would be usher would be the amount that you'd use to flatten the hair on your temples. But the beitzes hasid. Beitzes hasid is when the sid is not like a cream at all. It's like a clump. It has a very dry consistency. If we're talking about sid that's made to either flatten hair or to remove hair, the type of sid you would need to remove hair from the lower temple would also be of a very loose consistency that would be smeared on. So how could Rebbe say that he agrees with Nechem by Beitzas Hasid a hard, clumpy sid you couldn't use to remove hair. So Reb Nechemia for sure is not talking about that. Laomer Yitzchak, Amri Devei Reb Ami, Andifa. We're talking about Andifa. What is Andifa? Zokt Rashi. If you have a klicheres, it was a klicheres, and it had two spouts, one at the top and one towards the bottom. The one towards the top is what you used to fill it with. So when you wanted to fill it, you would plug the lower spout and you would fill it up from the upper spout. And then when you were ready to drain it, you pulled the plug off the lower spout, and that's how you would drain it. And you would fill it with wine. So what we're talking about here, so what he wants to learn is Pshat in Rab Nechemia. When Rab Nechemia says, when he says it's dirty, what Rab Nechemia means is the amount of sid that you would need to plug this keli. And then it makes sense. Near the Reb Yehuda b'chavot, if you're talking about loose, it would be based on flattening the hair from a temple. Reb Nechemia makes a sid, but Reb Nechemia, who's talking about the amount of sid to plug this spout by a thicker clay type of sid, that's where I would pass on to Nechemia that a small amount, just enough to plug a spout, would be the amount that you would not be allowed to carry. Maskala Rafkana, is someone going to waste his money? Zok Rashi, if you try to plug a wine jug with sid, it's just a matter of time till the wine is going to dissolve the sid, and then all of a sudden it's going to fully drain and you're going to lose your wine. So would anybody in their right mind use a clump of sid to block the lower spout of a wine jug? He's going to lose all his money. And therefore, that's not what pshat is. The purpose of this sid was to whiten. What does that mean? In the measurement cup that was called the hin, there were markers on it, like a measuring cup. Atkan lapar, we know the mincha, the oil required for a par was a chatzi hin. So in this hin keli, there was a line or a dimple. It's more like a dimple that was at the height of a chatzi hin. Atkan la'ayil, an ayil was a shlishish hin. So there was a dimple by a third of the hin, and atkan l'kevish, and then by a revius hin. So they had these little dimples. Now it's very hard to see a little dimple when you're filling up a keli. So we have glass measuring cups. You can hold it up to the light and you can see exactly where you're holding. But those were made out of cheres or metal. So they would dimple them, and then with the sid, they would scrape the dimple and it would make the dimple white. Once the dimple was a bright white, it was much easier to fill and to see where the level was. So that's what we're talking about. You need sid. You need the amount of sid that you would use to color the dimples that were marked, that were the markers to show where a quarter of a hin was, where a third of a hin was, and where a half of a hin was. Mayad nifa, it's a pusa. It's a pusa. What is a pusa? This fellow from Galil popped into Bavel. The Amrulay, they told him, you know Kabbalah. We want you to teach us Kabbalah. Kum d'roish lanu b'maisim merkava. They asked him, could you please, give us a shear in Kabbalah? Amr lahu, you know what? No problem. I'm happy to do that. Ed roish lahu k'didarish Rab Nechemia l'chavri. I'm going to darshan for you, just like Rab Nechemia darshaned for his friends. And what happens? The nafka ararisa min kaisel, a hornet came out of a crevice in the wall, umachte ba'andipi, and ended up stinging him in his temple, umis, and he died. They told him, min delay dole, this suffering that he had, that he got killed, he got what he deserved because he should never have been darshaning in Kabbalah. So what does it mean, apusa? So Rashi says it means padachas, it's a forehead, shaloi b'makom ser ulahadim. So what we're talking about we're talking about a clump. When Reb Nechemia said it's andipi, he meant the clump. It's a clump of sid that you would rub on the forehead of a person, and it would redden their skin, so it would make them look healthy, like blush. So at the end of the day, the three shiurim of how much sid is too much sid According to the Tanakama, it's a larger amount that you would be able to cover a whole limb. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's talking about a soft type of paste that will be used to remove hair from her temple. And according to Rabbi Nechemia, he's addressing, it's not even a machlokes, he's addressing a different type of sid, a hard clump of sid that you would rub on your forehead that you would use to make your forehead more red. That was one shot. Or you would use it to mark the individual markings in the measuring cup. You would highlight the dimple so that they're easily seen. Adama, what about earth? And this isn't regular earth. This is a reddish clay type of earth. Aizilai, Rashi says. So Adama is kechoisam hamartzufim, like the choisam of martzufim, which means that they used to have sacks made out of tree bark, Rashi says, and they would use these clay to seal the containers. So they would have these big containers made out of tree bark, and they would seal them before they shipped them out with this type of clay. These were seals that letters were sealed with for privacy. Zevel v'choil hadak. We had this earlier. The Gemara quoted. If you have manure, which is a fertilizer, or choil hadak, which used as fertilizer, how much fertilizer is shear that you cannot carry it? Kidei lezavel kelach shalkur. The amount required to fertilize a piece of cabbage. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, v'chomrim kidei lezavel karisha, which is cress, which would require less fertilizer. So it's a chomer. Choil hagas. What about thick sand? Kidei litein al mole kapsid. The amount required to mix cement that would fill an entire trowel. Kana, a reed, kidei lasis komus, enough to make a pen out of. Maya ava, it was a very thick reed where you couldn't possibly use it as a pen, you couldn't possibly make a pen out of it. Or merushes, if it was cracked, so you for sure can't make a pen out of it because it wouldn't contain the ink. So how much would, and then therefore it's only good for firewood. So you would need enough. You'd need enough of this to act as fuel to create a fire to cook a light egg amongst eggs. The Gemara will define what that is. Trufa, scrambled, and put in the pan. So it would be the amount of heat you need, the amount of wood you would need to create enough heat to cook an egg that's scrambled. Zok Gemara. What does that mean? Tana kedelitin al pikav shel sayadin. Enough sand that I could mix in and create a mixture of plaster that would fill a trowel. Man tana dechoil malal sid. Clearly, you're mixing sand into the sid mixture. Who does that? Who told you that it's good for sid? It improves the quality of the sid if you mix sand into it. Rabbi Yehuda holds that sand is good for sid. The Tanya, how do you know that? Because it says, "La yisoid adam espeso b'sid." You're not allowed to use sid, elim kain iriboy teven oichol, unless you mix some sand into it. And the reason why you're supposed to do it is shelo yehei lovan kol tzarchi. You don't want to be super white. And why is that? La'achar churban mishum avela shel Yerushalayim. Al tevela shel Yerushalayim, you don't have super bright white sid, so you have to mix in teven or choil to deepen the color, and it shouldn't be so bright. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, and this is what we're looking for, because we're looking for a makar, that sand is very good for sid. Teven mutter, choil osir. Teven will be mutter because that degrades the sid, but choil will be osir mepneshu tarchesid, because sand strengthens the plaster, and it's a very good thing, and therefore we're not going to allow you to do it. So now we have a raya that it's Rabbi Yehuda who's the one who holds sand improves the quality of sid. Rav Amar Afilu Tema Rabbanan. Rav says you could even be going according to the Rabbanan, who holds that you do mix sand in, when you mix sand into the sid, it degrades it, and that's why you have to mix sand into sid nowadays as Eichel Churban. But Kilkuloi Zeu Tikunoi Hagufa. The fact that it does such a good job, that's why you're not allowed. That's why you're not allowed to use it. But the fact that it's, I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up. If it wasn't for the fact that the coloring is bad, Lahoya mystery, it would not have been mutter. So obviously, it's a very good thing. You want to mix it in. It's a good thing, but the only reason why you don't make the only problem with it is the fact that it darkens it. But avad it does strengthen it. Okay. Zok the hele gemor weiter. Kana kedei lasus kolmus. How much of a reed do you have to cut? Big enough that you can make a pen out of it. How big does this reed have to be? In other words, how big of a pen would it have to be? Tana kolmus hamagia lekishres ba'isov. The kana, if you actually had a pen, any size pen is a davar chashuv. But here you just have the raw material that you're going to make the pen out of. So if it's just the raw material, there has to be enough raw material to make a pen that would reach your knuckles. Which knuckles? Boyer Vashi, Kesher Elyon and Kesher Tachton. Is it the knuckle where your finger connects to your hand, or is it the knuckle that's in the middle of your finger? Teku, that the Gemara doesn't know. If it was a very thick reed and you couldn't make a pen out of it, then it's enough to fuel a fire that would cook a beitzim from beitzah kala. What does that mean? Tana trufa b'shemen. It's scrambled with oil, and Rashi says because something that has oil mixed into it will cook faster, which means you need even less fuel. When you suna bilfas, it's in a pan. Omale mared mar bared ravina labared. Mar bared ravina told the son, Mish mialach beitzah kala mahi. What is this beitzah kala? What type of egg are we talking about? Omale beyosa the tziltzala. It's the egg of a bird called tziltzala, and he touches tziltzala as a relatively decent-sized bird, a small dove. He touches it as a small dove. So that's the type of egg that it has to be able to cook. My timer, Mishum dezutra. Since it's a small egg, that's why we're saying it's a be'akala. But if that's the case, Emo dit sifirta, say it's a hummingbird. A hummingbird is the smallest bird. It almost looks like a fly. Ishtik, he didn't have an answer. Because if you're assessing an egg based on its size, then beitzim kalas, the smallest egg, would be the egg of a hummingbird. Omerlei midish shmilach bah. So did you get shot in why this is? Omerlei hachi omer absheshes. This is what Absheshes said. Beitzah tarnagolos. It's actually referring to a chicken egg. Why is the chicken called a light egg? It's not light. It's actually bigger than many other eggs. The Gemara kashira chachamim yacham taras that ein lach beya kala lavasho yoshim beitzah tarnagolos. I guess it's not dense, but there's something about the egg of a chicken that it cooks faster and easier than any other egg. So that is the type of egg that you need enough fuel to cook. In fact, Gemara, so why is it that the shear is totally in cooking an egg that's kabeya, obviously, which is bigger than gregis? Why is it that by all the shurim of Shabbos we always look at food as with a sheer gregis, but over here we look at a kabeitza? Amalei, no, here we're also looking at a kagregris, but a kagregris of what? A kagregris of an egg. That's a chicken egg. So if you took a sheer gregris of a chicken egg, scrambled, and you put it into a pot, how much fuel would you need to cook it? And that's the sheer of the reed that would be usher to carry. We mean a sheer gregris. How much wood do I need to cook a sheer gregris of a chicken egg? I guess we could stop here. So I want to wish everybody a wonderful Yom HaMeyuchas.
Let's see. The Gemara that we looked at about carrying